Welcome into today's episode of the Unpaid Interns. Austin Render joined by Tamar Sher. It is Wednesday, August 12th. Tomorrow we have a great guest coming on today, very unique. We have a former U.S. silver medalist speed skater, and now he does so many things. Motivational speaker. He's a commentator for NBC during the Olympics. He's got a lot of different hats that he wears, and we'll have him on to talk all things about his life and his journey through sports. But tomorrow, a really exciting week of sports, not necessarily for the right reasons, at least yesterday. Unfortunately, we lost all Big Ten and Pac-12 fall sports events. And that's a big blow. It kind of felt inevitable, but it's still like I was out with my buddies yesterday on the golf course, and I always have been joking, like, man, it'll really stink when there's no football. But then when I said it and knew it was real, like, man, it's going to stink when there's no football. And it hit me like, that's real. Like, there is no football. So it's going to be weird.
It kind of hasn't completely hit me. I've yet to go to Bloomington yet. I'll be there on Thursday, tomorrow, which is crazy. But I just am really, I think this is the right decision. So while I am very sad, I'm disappointed for the players because I know they wanted to play. They felt that, and a lot of people, Nebraska's been saying it, our own players have been speaking up, but a lot of people thought this was the safest way, was to opt out and cancel the fall season. And then some players, they were saying they think it's the safest to be on the field because they were committed to the protocols. IU Student Athlete Advisory Committee reacted to the no football season by saying two things that it really stood out to me. One, they care about the mental health of these athletes, and that needs to be of high importance to the athletic department. They're saying with no fall sports, it's really going to take a toll on those athletes. So how can we make sure that they're kind of helping in the mourning of the loss of the sport, which is crazy to even think of. And second, athlete eligibility. So asking respectfully for decisions to be made in a timely manner so that players can start making the decision of whether they want to have another year of eligibility. Some, this is their last, they played their last game already. They didn't even know it.
Yeah, no, eligibility is a huge thing. I mean, you have to, if you're the NCAA, you have to say you get another year. I mean, I don't think you can tell someone who didn't get to play a single snap, a single down, that they don't get that year back. I think, and I know it's gonna create headaches. It's gonna create recruiting difficulties. It's gonna be a nightmare for the logistical side of things. But you have to. I mean, these are unprecedented circumstances.
And also the other side of that, though, is the financial support. You're asking these college athletes that are paying to go to school and learn and be educated and they want that extra season, but you're asking them, they have to also have that financial burden during the coronavirus pandemic, which you don't know when it's going to really end. Is next fall even going to be normal? Yeah. And then talking about spring too, is that going to even work?
Spring, I get everybody being like, let's do spring. But you got to really look ahead and be like, okay, if you do spring, that means you can't do fall. You can't go spring, fall in a matter of like 8 months playing 2 football seasons.
The wear and tear
it's going to be way too much. They're going to have to decide, are we good with spring? And we're going to have to keep it spring, which they're not going to keep it spring. So like, you're almost going to have to just wash away the season. And it's important to note as we move on here, the ball's in your court, college basketball. I mean, you're next, and you have, I think it was Dana O'Neill that wrote this for The Athletic. She said, look, you have time, use it wisely. Like, figure something out. Most college campuses from November to early February will not be on campus. So use that opportunity to take your kids into a bubble, take the students into a bubble, and maybe make it work. I don't know. I'm not in the position of power there. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just saying now is the time. I think, and it's not all the NCAA and all the conferences' fault. I think our country has put people in a bad position in terms of our response to this. But it feels like they had time to make this work. I mean, this all came out in March, and it feels really disappointing in August to not have a plan in place. And I think that's the most frustrating part is we're sitting here 5 months later. You knew you knew in April, it's not going to fix itself by August. And I think people were just under the impression it was going to go away. And it might come back in September, October, but it was going to go away for a little bit. It was never going to go away. And having 5 months to come up with something, and they came up with nothing, is really disappointing. But the NHL and the NBA have figured things out. The NHL had a 5 overtime game that lasted over 6 hours yesterday, Tamar. So pretty crazy there. And the NBA continues to have no test as well. Let's move on to our guest for today. He is John Coyle, a former U.S. silver medalist in speed skating. He's also a commentator for NBC, as well as wearing many other hats in his professional life. John, we are so happy to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Well, let's, I guess we'll start with that. My dad tells me you are a motivational speaker. You kind of go around and speak to people. What has kind of been, I mean, this is not a time where you can go around and see people face to face right now. So kind of what's been your shift in mindset as someone who likes to get around, give speeches, see people, and you kind of have had that taken away the past few months?
Yeah, so that's been a pretty dramatic shift. Just before COVID, I was in 17 countries speaking last year, and I was in Jordan and Lebanon, and I flew back, and I got back March 15th, and then that was it. Haven't been able to really go anywhere. Done a couple of virtual things, but instead, I've decided to, and I'm just nearly complete, of selling everything I own. And in 10 days, I move into a giant RV, and I'll be just traveling around the States, visiting friends and doing some outdoor talks as time allows.
Very neat. You got a few clocks there. You gotta get rid of. You will never not know what time it is. Absolutely.
That's right. Actually,
is that for all the time zones? Because I'm seeing they're all different.
Yeah, most of them are just dead. I gave up.
Okay.
Too much work. Like when daylight savings hit, it was just like way too much work to do 30 clocks. So
I thought you were getting really advanced and getting like Lebanon and all these different time zones going there. I mean, I do want to talk a lot about your experience with the Olympics and that type of thing. Obviously, 2020 was supposed to be an Olympic year. It did not happen, and it's very unfortunate. They're going to try and make it work next year. If you were in their shoes, I mean, how would you have reacted and tried to take the news that, I mean, you trained for your whole life for this opportunity and to have it taken away? I mean, how do you sympathize with those who have kind of been hit by this?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. At least it's only a year delay. It's not like you wouldn't probably remember this, but back in 1980, we boycotted the Olympics, and you lost 4 years, right? You had no opportunity to do anything. So with only a year delay, hopefully it's not too significant. Some athletes probably peaked for 2020, but hopefully they can sort of resume their capacities 1 year later. It's not too dreadful, but if I think Tokyo's on record saying that if they don't have it in 2021, they're not having it at all. And that would be devastating to anybody that's put their whole life on hold for this kind of opportunity.
How would you in particular be approaching this situation, given you were the athlete, you were competing at this time, you train your entire life for the Olympic stage, and then when it's stripped away, how do you think you'd be handling it during this downtime?
The training would continue. Everything would be the same. It's really, in non-Olympic years, you still have other competitions and other things to prepare for. Probably they're not having world championships either. So it's probably a little weird because some competitors, myself not included, like to train and they like the training process. Whereas for me and lots of others, we sort of live to compete. And so not being able to compete, it would be really, really trying and frustrating. And I imagine, I've heard rumors that there are secret races going on in various sports because some people just really want to get out and race.
Well, let's go back to your time as an Olympic athlete. What do you remember from some of those Olympics, especially winning a silver medal? And I guess my first question is, what does it feel like? Like you compete in world championships, you do all these things, but then you put on the red, white, and blue, you represent your country. What is that like to be on the biggest stage representing the country that you've lived in?
So it's really, really intense. Particularly, and this is sort of odd, but I think it'll make sense as I explain it. In the preliminary rounds, extraordinarily nervous. Just didn't sleep the night before the semifinals at all. And none of us did. Not one member of my team slept 1 minute. We were just so stressed out. And the difference is, but I was not stressed at all for the gold medal final. And the difference being in the semifinals, it's all about not screwing up. Right? Don't make a mistake. Don't do anything stupid. You don't necessarily have to push it 100%. By the time you get to the final, it's like, well, there's nothing else left to do. You just put it all out there and see how it goes. Let the chips fall where they may. So the finals were actually super fun. I was waving to my parents and friends in the audience and wasn't nervous at all. There's a problem that happens to athletes though. And there's actually a new documentary that sort of touches on this is your entire orientation around time. I'm working on a book about time right now. Actually, it's called Counterclockwise, Unwinding Cognitive Time. And it's actually a prescriptive way to manipulate time in your favor and experience the endless summers of your youth again. But that aside, what happens for athletes and lots of people actually that are really achievement oriented is you get very future oriented. Right? So you're always thinking about, 4 years from now, 3 years from now, 2 years from now. And when you get to that moment, it's actually very difficult to be present. So people always ask, what's it like to step up on the podium and bend your neck to get an Olympic medal, everything you've always fought for. And the reality is I lied about it for a decade, but I used to say, it was great, it was awesome, it was the best. And the reality was I wasn't there. I wasn't even vaguely present. I can remember thinking these things. Should I keep skating for another 4 years? I'm only 26, but then I'd be 30 and I don't earn any money during this, so I'd be poor again for 4 more years. I hope I don't get drug tested tonight because I don't really have to pee. And if I get drug tested, that means I'm going to be stuck here while everybody else is going out and having fun and totally not present. Now they fixed this glitch though. And so this is a beautiful thing that almost nobody knows. So they have a new procedure for medal giving in the Olympics. They don't give you the medal when you win. You have 24 hours. They just give you flowers. They do it a ceremony, but they hand you flowers, no medal. And you have to wait at least 24 hours to receive your medal, and they do it at a different ceremony. And so that gives you time to sort of process what happens and what has happened. The other thing that's really cool, and this is a secret ceremony, it's just before when you get your medal, you go to the USA House or whatever country you're from, you have a house that's designed for the athletes and supporters. And you go there and about 90 minutes before you get your medal, you have to give a medal to the person that helped you the most. It's called the Icarus Award, who was the first, I believe, gold medalist in the Greek mythology. And nobody gets through this with a dry. Nobody. It's amazing. So then you give your medal to whoever it was, your dad, your coach, whoever, and then you go get your medal. And it's a really powerful set of experiences, and they've fixed the glitch.
Wow. I think during this time, especially, what you're saying really will resonate with people because the times we're living in, we are really able to kind of take the pause that you don't normally get, especially in those big stages. And being part of the Olympics is such an incredible feat that to make it to. So what would you say for just you're living your life now and kind of there's a time pause? How do you, as a motivational speaker kind of talk to those to say, this is how you should take advantage of this time where you can really be present and in the moment?
Yeah, it's just really challenging right now, particularly from a time perspective. There's this thing that has happened with COVID, they actually call it in movie making, they call it the dolly zoom or the vertigo effect. And it's where let's say a person is in front of a sunset and they want to sort of bring emotion into the segment. They will race the camera away while zooming in simultaneously. And so the person stays the same size, but the building or sunset behind them grows bigger because of the zoom and the moving away. This is, I think, what's happened with COVID is it was such a big event that it's getting bigger. It's almost growing with its sort of impact and implications for us. But because day-to-day has gotten so routine for so many people, the day-to-day is speeding by. So it's a very similar effect, right? COVID big, day-to-day shrinking, no time, like where did June go? And I'm so not cool with that. So that was really the impulse to say, wait, do I need all of these things? No. Do I need to stay in one place? No. Can I leave the country? No. But what can I do? Well, I can get in a giant RV and start visiting friends and having adventures again.
Yeah, I agree with the June thing. I think March, April went really slow, and then all of a sudden May, June, July just kind of flew.
Like, how did it get to be August? Like
we're in mid-August already, which I guess is a good thing in a way because you're getting closer to figuring things out, but it also doesn't feel like that, and it is crazy.
Yeah, it feels like it could be like the second week of June.
We had an Olympic athlete that Tamar brought on, and Dave Silvestri was a baseball player, and he talked about how important, like, not only the competing on the field and doing all that stuff, but how much fun it was to just be a part of the Olympic Village and everything that goes around being an athlete there. Kind of break down what it's like off the ice to be an Olympic athlete. You get to go watch other people. Kind of what were your plans and activities when you weren't on the ice?
Yeah, so, there's all of the rumors, of course, over certain types of activity at the Olympic Village. And I'll have to debunk those and suggest that's mostly not true. Every 4 years, there's always multiple articles about how many condoms were distributed at the Olympic Games in the Olympic Village. And the reality is there were bins of them all over the Olympic Village. And so what do you do if you're a 25-year-old kid? You grab huge handfuls and you fill them with water and throw them at your buddies. And so they're counting those as though that is a indication of activity. So that's really not necessarily true. For us, unfortunately, we competed. Our final gold medal round was at 10 p.m. on the night before closing ceremonies. So I basically trained and slept and ate. That's pretty much it. Though I did meet Tonya Harding. I don't know if you know who that is. Mm-hmm. So, little story here, true story. Bear with me. I'll clarify in a second.
We love stories. So yes.
The first time I met Tonya Harding, she was naked and so was I. So there's the setup. Now I'll tell this story as a big.
Yeah, we're ready for the story now.
Beginning of one of my talks, and then I let it wait till the very end to close the gap. So in the Olympic Village in Lillehammer, where I was, there was a big sports performance room where you could go in and get a massage or get other work done 24/7. And so they had pairs of massage beds, 2 beds, TV, 2 beds, TV. It was probably, 20 pairs. And I went in there pretty late one night, probably 11 o'clock p.m. And I was on the bed and I was looking at the TV out of the corner of my eye because, the Olympics were on 24/7 on the TVs. And then I heard somebody lay down next to me and I knew somebody else was getting a massage. Now the procedure, because you're in Scandinavia, is you come in, you go into a changing room, you take off all your clothes, you put on a towel or 2 if you're a woman, and then you lay down on the bed and somebody magically appears to give you a massage. So I hear somebody in the bed next to me, and then it's my turn to flip. So I turn this way and I see the back of somebody's head, but it's bright blonde hair, sort of tied up in a bob. And I had an inkling of who it might be, but I wasn't sure. And then a few seconds later on the TV, there was an announcement. It was breaking news, and the Jeff Gillooly Tonya Harding affairs. It appears Tonya Harding may have had a role in the attack on Nancy Kerrigan. And right then our head swivels. Our faces are only 2 feet apart. Our eyes lock. I freak out like I'm a voyeur in somebody's nightmare. And so I'm going to pretend now that I didn't recognize her. I didn't hear that. And I don't know what's going on. Right. So I start to like turn away, and she reaches out and she grabs my wrist, which had the remote. And she's like, no, 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 turn it up. Turn it up. I want to hear this. No shame. All she wanted to do was hear her name on TV.
Wow.
What a story.
That's crazy. Also, I get the dots have been connected. I like that you lead with that. It's good misleading there. No, that's crazy. What a story that I'm sure no one else gets to tell except for you and maybe the masseuse.
Right.
But let's shift to you've broadcasted a couple of Olympics now for NBC. What has that role kind of been like? Not being the athlete, but still being part of the Olympics has to still be pretty special.
It's way better. It's so fun. I mean, unbeknownst to me when I was an athlete, the Olympics is a 17-day party. And so every day is this huge celebration. And it's all positive, and everybody's in a good mood, and everybody talks to everybody. So there's like an unwritten rule. No matter where you go, whoever you run into, you ask them why they're there, who they're there for, because usually they're supporting some athlete, right? Mostly it's friends and family of an athlete. There are some pure tourists, but they're actually relatively rare because there are so many families and supporters involved with the game. So you end up talking to everybody everywhere you go. Nobody sleeps. I mean, when I was in Sochi, with 5 nights to go, I slept 2 hours. 4 nights to go, I slept an hour. And for the last 3 days, I never slept. And then I got on the plane, and and then when you come home, it's like a total hangover. You just miss it so much because it's so fun. But we got on the plane. It was actually an NBC charter, and I'm exhausted. I am so wiped out. And I'm just ready. I've got my mask on. I'm leaning against the window. I'm ready to go down. And after we took off, I was just starting to fall asleep. That sound was made, and then the announcement was, just to let you know, since this is a charter flight, we've pushed the bar carts into the aisleways. Have whatever you'd like. Enjoy your 8-hour flight back to New York. And then everybody's up and drinking, and the party goes on. And next thing I know, I'm not sleeping yet again.
That's awesome. It's kind of like maybe what the bubble may look like, of just getting to be together and having fun all together. And you were just 17 days, but now imagine months of it. Right. But we were gonna ask this question. You joke about it on your website, but you were a teammate with Lance Armstrong. But what did you think about the latest Armstrong documentary? What did you think of him as a cycler, as a teammate? And we just had to poke at the odd facts on your website, as Austin put it.
Yeah, I'm the only person in the world to have cycled on the same team as Lance Armstrong and worked directly for Jeff Skilling and Ken Lay of Enron, arguably the 2 greatest frauds perpetuated in modern mankind.
So what does that say about John Coyle? That's the question.
I never doped, and I never did any whitewash trades. So, yeah, the documentary, to me, it's actually sad to watch him, because he has probably still had, but he definitely had the opportunity to do the right thing, which to me was very simple, right? He committed a whole bunch of heinous acts. He cheated, he doped, he did it, then he blamed everybody else around him, all the while trying to pretend he was a hero to, tens of millions of people. What he should have done was he should have given away all the money he still retained, which was around $150 million, to cancer, right? And lived in a shack for a couple of months. And then he'd actually be the hero again, right? People would want to talk to him. I mean, think about his life right now. Everywhere he goes, people are whispering and pointing. And if I saw him, I would whisper and point because he's a cheat and a fraud. If he'd given all his money away, everybody, America loves the underdog. They love people that come clean and that do the right thing. And so, I feel bad for him because everywhere he goes for the rest of his life and for his kids, he's the cheater, he's the fraudster, he's the bad guy. And frankly, he is. So you get what, karma.
The other odd fact is a whole different story. You say that you have really good hot chili peppers. What's the secret recipe and how hot are these hot chili peppers?
So chilies are the best thing in the world. So we'll do a little Scoville sort of escalation. So, a green pepper has 0 Scoville units. Scoville units is the measure of capsaicin, and capsaicin is what provides the sense of heat. And by the way, capsaicin is a chemical transaction with your tongue or your skin that simulates the feeling of burning, like heat, but actually does no tissue damage. So no matter how much your mouth is burning from something, once it's gone away, the cellular construction of your mouth, your skin, whatever, is not changed. This is why they use pepper spray as well. Like, yeah, it blinds you and it's painful, but an hour later, you're basically fine. All right, so 0 for green pepper. A jalapeno, which has more flavor than a green pepper, right? They have nice flavor. They actually, to me, they taste cool. Like, there are 8,000 or so Scoville units. So 0 to 8,000. You go to a habanero, lots of flavor. So as the heat escalates, the flavor escalates even more. So habaneros have tons more flavor than jalapeno. You only need a tiny bit of habanero to infuse an entire bowl of soup, for example. Habanero has about 40,000 Scovilles. The chilies I grow range between 2 and 3 million Scovilles. So they are, 100 to 200 times hotter than a habanero. So a tiny amount infuses anything. So I use a cheese grater usually and zest it in, say, a bowl of soup or on top of pizza or on a burger. And the whole thing just lights up with heat and flavor. They taste of lemon and lemongrass and citrus, and they're floral as well. They're amazing.
So have you ever thought of being a chef? Is this on your path?
Well, part of the RV trip is going to be visiting friends, and so I cook all the time. Like, I cook 3 meals a day. I run my dishwasher twice, and I live, with just my girlfriend. So, but the plan is going to be, if I show up in your driveway or in your street, you get to choose what you want me to make. You have to go shop for the ingredients and pay for them. So I'll be documenting some of the extravagant meals along the way. I already have in Milwaukee in a few weeks, about 2 weeks time, we'll be doing beef Wellington for a friend up there.
You're like, look, I'm already in an RV. I need you to pay for the food, right, and I will make the food.
Right. In your kitchen, and I'll make the mess and not clean it up.
Yeah, we're not gonna make it in the RV. We're coming in your house. I was gonna ask, what is this RV trip kind of detail? What do you know about it, at least for the time being?
So we will probably never stay in a campground, just because frankly I don't like them. They're crowded and there's lots of people around and it's noisy. So it'll be a mix of people's driveways or parking in front of their house, plugging into their house and visiting with them and making a meal. I'll be doing some outdoor talks along the way. So in certain cities like Dallas or Madison, Wisconsin, we're going to find a park or somebody with a large piece of land, and I have an outdoor amplifier, and I'll do some outdoor talks. So it's, it's COVID friendly. And then boondocking, which is finding places, and there's a bunch of resources and apps out there where you can park away from everybody for free, and not have to deal with any noise or crowds. And one of the great apps that I have is called Harvest Hosts. And so I can go to any one of 1,300 wineries, vineyards, farms, honey makers, people that make products that have lots of land, and they just let you park on their farm or in their vineyard overnight. And then you're encouraged to come into their shop the next day and buy something, which I usually buy a bottle of wine or whatever. I've stayed in a bunch of those. Those are fantastic. So, and then we're just going to go north and then west. So we're going to Wisconsin, Minnesota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, visit my parents there, and then to the West Coast, Mill Valley, San Francisco, down to LA, San Diego, and then back east to Texas, New Orleans, and then Florida, and then back north once the 6 months is over.
Dang, that's quite a schedule.
Sounds like fun.
Tamar looks extremely jealous.
I would do that. Let's do the whole HN crew on an RV.
We'll do the podcast from the RV. We'll start moving the Unpaid Interns podcast around the country.
It's a great way to spend your time.
I feel like we may have some internet issues.
Yeah, that's the thing. But you can always find signal somewhere. I mean, other than boondocking out in the middle of nowhere, you can always go to Starbucks. You can always park in a Marriott parking lot if you need Wi-Fi. Otherwise, the cell signal's good in most highways and major cities. So
that's fair. Yeah, I mean, this has kind of been a weird time. You talk about doing outdoor stuff. I mean, how would you try and tell somebody how would you recommend to take the most advantage of online group meetings or virtual opportunities you get to be with a group, to be with an employer or whatnot? What's the best way to kind of optimize the situation that we're in?
Well, one of the things that the virtual tools provide, that at least for me as a speaker, is I actually can read the minds of people when I do virtual talks, which I cannot do live. Like live, all I get is body language, right? Because nobody's talking back to me. There's no time for that, generally speaking. It's not like it's an interactive talk when you have 500, 1,000 people. You can't do that. But online, what I do is I ask questions and then I watch the chat bar. And so I can sort of read the minds of the audience of things they're thinking about, worrying about. I can do polls and word clouds as well. And so there's some advantages actually to the virtual world, which is this talking and typing combination allows you to see more and learn more. So that's really fun when I do these virtual presentations. I just did a virtual presentation for 4,000 Pricewaterhouse interns. And so I used the chat and I used some polls, and it was super fun just to hear, what they were worrying about. And, like one of the questions I asked them is, what's one thing you can give up right now that's keeping you from being productive? And I mean, almost all of them said social media, which I found pretty fascinating.
I think we could all say social media. It's like one of those things we need, but we also need to give up. I think there's a fine line of social media. What, you're shaking your head?
That's our job, Austin.
I said we need it, but we also need to give it up. There's a tough line there.
Twitter
can be a harsh place sometimes.
It can be, but we are shifting into a new world, a new generation, and that's now our classes. It's crazy how our classes are based off of social media and being on your phones and online. You couldn't say that 10, 15 years ago. So
right.
Yeah. No, I was gonna ask, have you had any like crazy encounters back when you were doing speeches in person and whatnot, like with someone who comes up to you after the speech or whatever, just asks you a question you're just like, you'll never forget just because it was so bizarre?
Well, I'd say last year, the most bizarre situation I found myself in is I was speaking for a conference in Dubai, and I'd never been to the Middle East prior to this. And unbeknownst to me, the entire conference was sponsored by the royal family. So I show up and I'm the closing keynote. And at break midday, the host said, okay, I'm going to show you where we're going to be sitting before you get introduced. The room was split. There was 4 rows up front with maybe 200 people, and then a pretty big space, and then the other 1,500 seats. So it was 1,800 people in there. He's like, so on break, they will announce the royal family to come in, and they will all come in. Here's your seat. And here's His Royal Highness. He's sitting 2 seats from me, is the Prince of Dubai. And so then everybody stands, and then we walk in, and they're all men, they were all in white, full regalia, and then me. I was the only Westerner. And it was just the strangest feeling to be in this completely different culture that I had never experienced before. And then, to get up and give the speech was pretty exciting.
What's the coolest place you've traveled to? It sounds like you've been to a lot of great places.
Last June, I got invited to speak to a group of 200 business leaders in Kyrgyzstan. Now, I had never even heard nor spelled the word Kyrgyzstan before.
I was going to say, I think I need a map here.
Yeah. So it's between Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan and China.
Okay.
And it's a mountainous, a completely gorgeous country. And this group, which I'm now a member of, what they do is they hold these leadership development meetings for 3 days, and then they do adventures for the next 7. So we went down the Silk Road. So we went from Kyrgyzstan down to Uzbekistan. We went to Samarkand, Tashkent, Bukhara, all these ancient cities from the old Silk Road. We took a Soviet helicopter up to this icy mountain lake and slid down this long glacier into this 32-degree water. I mean, we just had an amazing set of adventures. That was definitely a highlight of last year.
Wow. That's super cool. Well, we want to really thank you for coming on with us today. A lot of great stories, great insight. Good luck with the RV tour. I hope it goes well, and hopefully you get to make some fun meals with your friends. And thanks again for sharing some time with us.
Yeah, you bet. Great to meet you guys both.
Yeah, nice to
Thank
meet you,
you.
John. Take care.
Okay, ciao.
That was John Coyle, a former silver medalist at the 1994 Olympic Games. Nice enough to share some of his time with us. Have to give my dad a shout out. He was he knew him on LinkedIn, and we got him on the show. Boy, he has some stories tomorrow. That was crazy.
He's cool. That's I was thinking the whole time I was sitting here. I just want
Tamar's like, can you come through St. Louis and pick me up, please?
Yeah, I want to try your recipes. I will pay. But no, he's fabulous. And boy, what experiences he's been able to have in his lifetime. It's just so beautiful how he can really motivate others through speech and just completely be himself. So I love it.
that question. What can you give up in your life to be more productive? It's such a great question, and it makes you think, what do I do in my life that's a waste of my own time?
Right. And it is telling how people are saying social media is the majority, which is crazy.
We spend a lot of time on social media.
Especially during this downtime, I've noticed. If you look at your phone activity, that's another challenge.
Yeah.
Look at that and try to
I don't like that. Every Sunday morning I wake up and it tells me how many hours I've been on my phone. I don't need that. Please stop.
Please don't.
You don't realize we're in a pandemic. I don't have anything else to do.
Thank goodness for these phones, right?
Yeah, man. Well, I loved what he talked about with the polls, and you and I we're beneficiaries of the technology as well. I mean, if there was a time to go through a pandemic where we have to meet people virtually, thank goodness we have Zoom and Microsoft Teams and all of those different and Skype and FaceTime. And it would be really tough without having those virtual opportunities to see people and to have meetings and still be able to be productive. So that's big. Before John came on, we were wanting to talk about that 5 overtime hockey game, Columbus and Tampa Bay. The Lightning have not had a lot of success playing the Blue Jackets in the past 2 seasons. Last year swept after having a historical season, and now this year they go into 5 overtimes. Tamar, that's more than a full second game of hockey. I mean, that's insane.
So insane. The 4th longest playoff game in NHL history. Absurd. I was telling you before we entered this meeting that I was watching the tail end of it. I watched the beginning of it. No chance was I sitting through 6 hours of nothing. But, it was an incredible way to start off the season. They postponed the Bruins Hurricanes start to today, which it's going on right now, 40 minutes into it. Wonder how they're doing. The Bruins obviously lost to the Blues in the Stanley Cup last year, Stanley Cup Finals, but I'm really excited to see how these playoffs turn out for hockey because it's working. I think it is a great atmosphere that they're setting up. Man, 6 hours for that game is insane.
So
Lots of
Boston or
record.
Carolina's up 1-0 right now.
Okay.
And your Blues are in action tonight against Vancouver.
Yes, they
So
are.
big night for tomorrow. That's a late night, 10:30. I guess it's 9:30 for you in St.
9:30 for
Louis.
us.
But that's a late night. We watched the Blackhawks last night, late into the night. That was a tough one for the Blackhawks. I'm not a huge hockey fan. I just love playoff hockey. So and I filled out a bracket, so I now have teams to root for.
Many people say that. Many people say they are a playoff hockey
It's
fan.
fantastic. It's very fun. And that game was 0-0 after the first period. And we're like, oh, it's going to five overtimes again. Yep, it's going to happen again. But now Vegas pulled away. But really, really intriguing sports landscape. We might have just lost college sports, and that really sucks. And I feel for the athletes, the coaches. I feel for people, our colleagues who geared up, who had maybe just gotten the opportunity to cover football this year, or all those people that now don't have jobs. I feel for them. We have to make the most out of the NBA, the NHL, what is of the MLB, and just make the best of what we have. And hopefully they can make a spring season work for some of these sports, and maybe college basketball can make something work. But unfortunate day yesterday. I was on the golf course when March Madness was officially canceled on, I think that was March 12th, maybe 11th. And I think it was 12th. And then August 11th, I'm on the golf course when the football season gets canceled. I think the moral of the story is I played too much golf, but also just getting my news flashes on like the third hole. It's like, oh man, that sucks. You knew it was coming. You knew it was coming, but man, it stinks.
Yeah. And Mary Kate Hamilton reached out to me yesterday, and on Twitter, she reached out to all of us just saying it's with a heavy heart that we're all going through this. But again, we're all going through this together. Yep. I really feel for the athletes. I feel for our peers. Just this is going to be a whole shift in mindset, but you have to stay positive. You have to be hopeful, but don't get your hopes up, because we don't know about the spring. We don't know what even 2021 is going to hold, but we got to keep each other accountable. Like we've been saying, we got to stay positive and happy and try and find the silver linings in everything, and really not throw it all away, but be safe and healthy. And I'm excited to get to Bloomington and be with you very soon.
Tomorrow we'll be here. I just played the new foul course at IU, the new golf course. Highly recommend. It was a blast yesterday. I'll be back tomorrow. Cannot wait. Love that course already after one time. Before we go, NBA news. Dame Lillard absolutely lighting it up. Another 61 yesterday. The Blazers feel like they're the front runner. Also with the Suns, 7-0. Could be a Suns-Blazers play-in game. And then the NBA put out a memo. Players must prove long-standing relationship for any non-family members to enter bubble. So they're trying to, because I believe the second round of the playoffs is when family can join the bubble. So we'll see how that works. The NBA has been ahead of things. They've had everything planned out. Everything's worked so far. We'll see when we come to the end of August into September if they can make that work. But tomorrow, great episode with John Coyle today. Always great to have you back on. That'll wrap things up here for our Wednesday episode. A reminder, you can catch all our episodes wherever you get podcasts or on our IU Sports Media YouTube page if you want to see all the clocks that were behind John Coyle today, most of them broken or not working. But great episode today. Check out all of our previous 36 wherever you want on podcasts or on video on the IU Sports Media YouTube page. For John Coyle and Tamar Scher, I'm Austin Render. That'll wrap up our Wednesday episode. We'll see you on Friday on Unpaid Interns.